Oh,
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man Jay Kevin here with Leif Taylor, having our regular conversation around health, wealth, relationships, and happiness, and everything else in between. If it's in pop culture, we'll talk about it. If it's a main pillar around life in general, we'll talk about that too. So, what's been up with you, Leif?
it's not much, man. Just working and pursuing the dream. That's about it. How about yourself, bro?
The same, just living the dream, man, having fun, enjoying life whenever and however that I can, because we all know that happiness isn't, forever, all the time, every day. But
At
whenever you
all.
can find those openings, take them while you can. Make happiness a choice whenever you can. Like I was talking to somebody before we get started, and they were making a comment like, you know what? When take your PTO time, take your sick time, take your
They
vacation,
use it
take
all up.
yeah, use it all up while you can and when you can. These are things that are part of your package sometimes, depending on what you're
Yep.
doing when it comes to career and employment. And for the longest, life, I grew up in a culture, I grew up with the mindset that, hey, no, man, you don't do none of that. You grind it out, and you skip birthdays, you skip holidays, you grind it out, and you work your way through all that stuff so you can climb that ladder, get to the top, and then when you get about 80 or 70, then you can retire
Yeah,
and calm
exactly.
down and take those vacations and stuff when you're all broken down. But I was talking to somebody, and they were saying that, hey, no, you need to take your time that is part of your benefits package when and however
Utilize
you
it.
can.
Yep.
So in order to make room for happiness in your life, and then, I was just thinking about how it's important to really cultivate and get those nuggets, those spaces of rest and recovery and happiness in your life whenever you can, because you just never know when your date of expiration is near. So
True. That's
so
physically in life and even your date of expiration from that particular job and location where you have those benefits.
yeah, all of the above. We got to think about all of that. A lot of times we don't think about that, but yeah, we got to keep all that stuff on the table. Like before we got on, we were talking, we were doing having our normal warm up
Yep, yep.
session about a lot of different things. And before we came on, I was going to ask the question. I said, well, let's wait till we get on. I was going to ask the question: what are some things that we can put in place in our life when it comes to our spiritual walk, our mind, our heart, our body? What are some things that we can do in our life that will help insulate us from tough times, maybe those times where you may be have some moments of fear, from those times where you may be anxious, those times where you may have some instability and chaos in your life in some way, shape, or form. I'm just thinking about health, wealth, relationships, and then thinking about purpose. What are some things that we can implement in our life in some different areas to help insulate us and give us some space, give us some room of some margin when it comes to dealing with things like fear, attack, tough times, chaos. And you were pointing out some examples of some things that some people had done when it
Mhm.
comes to the financial life in their career, that they had set themselves up in such a way that when they did go through some tough times, they were able to thrive through those times because they had put in place some systems and some things in our life to help them kind of maneuver through those situations. So I was just want to call and have a conversation about
Yeah.
that. And one of the things that got me thinking about that is that, just paying attention to the news, I see that we're now entering into a cycle with respect to, the pandemic and respect to, COVID and stuff like that, that it seems like we're on an uptick as far as people's attention,
Yeah.
with respect to that. And one of the things that comes along with that I'm noticing is that the fear and the anxiety, the worry, some of those things, those emotional states start to uptick. And I noticed that confusion when it comes to people's thinking, that's starting to uptick. And then I noticed that, with respect to that, people physically start to get, ill, and they start to break down.
Yeah, because of worry and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I was thinking about, what are some things that we can implement in our life when it comes to, building some insulation? And we started off talking about finances, and we started off talking about some individuals who were in the hip hop community or who were in the music career, and they had built themselves up in such a way that when tough times came, they were able to sustain and thrive.
Yeah, so I'll address this in a variety of ways. I'll get to the financial, I guess, on the second part.
Yeah.
But one of the things you can do, I was actually having a conversation with my wife about this kind of stuff earlier, like throughout the week, is eliminate clutter. And and I mean this in a variety of ways. I mean physically, eliminate the clutter in your home, eliminate the clutter in your workspace, whether it's your desk, your car, wherever it is that you do business, wherever it is that you do your thinking. Eliminate that clutter for a variety of reasons. And one of the reasons being is that you don't want things to literally and physically, figuratively trip you up, right? You don't want to have to worry about micromanaging a bunch of stuff. And when I'm talking about clutter, I mean possessions, a lot of those things. I've been watching a lot of minimalism stuff again here. Actually, it was just not a lot of minimalism. I just happened to watch a video on minimalism, and another video I was watching where a guy was just talking about how he grew his businesses. He mentioned minimalistic behavior. Two unrelated topics, because the only reason why I was watching the minimalism stuff, give my roundabout stories, because I was watching somebody who produced their first film for Netflix. It just happened to be on minimalism. Then I looked up the guy who the production was about. I was like, oh, I know this guy. Then I watched one of his videos, and then another video that I already had in my queue. Like when I'm working, I usually have like a video of just people talking, so I can just, sometimes just groove through my work. And he just talked about routine and clutter and those kinds of things. And, he made like $30 million last year. And he talked about how he eliminated the stuff in his house, just reduced all of the unnecessary items in his life so that he could just be laser-like focused on his businesses and his finances, so those things wouldn't be a distraction. So going back to the original question, what are some things that you can do to insulate your mind, insulate your finances, and those kinds of things? Is by eliminating clutter, you eliminate the stress of having to deal with it, and that's the whole point. You gotta get rid of your stressors, because when tough times come, it might be the one thing that makes you snap, right? It's the the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Because it's not the fact that the straw was so heavy, it's just that you've piled so many other things on that any extra weight will make you collapse. And so you just want to make sure that you're clear on your purpose, clear on your focus, clear in your environment, because one, clutter is a safety hazard. The last thing you want to do is trip and twist an ankle or break your foot or do whatever, and now you're incapacitated, so it's another problem you have to deal with, right? And so just from a practical standpoint, this is something you can do without extra money. It's something that you can do, maybe you need help, maybe you don't. You can do it by yourself, you can do it over time, but just that process will help clear your mind and get you less focused on the things around you and more focused on the things you want to focus on. So that's one bit of advice. And then, so I guess once you get your mind clear and focused, is another way to insulate yourself. You got something to say?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, we've talked about this, some in the past, talking about how important it is to really just get rid of physical stuff that you're not really using or needing, and that, having physical stuff literally laying around literally zaps and drains, takes away, as far as energy wise. We even talked about, we see that in the practice of what's the Japanese practice of how you structure your environment? I think it's Chinese or Japanese.
Oh, you're talking about feng shui?
Yeah, feng shui, and how the way you structure your environment, making sure that you have a framework or structure to it, helps when it comes to energy management in your environment, and
Yeah,
just having.
just think about it in a simple manner, right? Just like if you ever watch like NBA players or basketball players practice before a game, they have
Yeah,
somebody pass them the ball so they don't have to go after it,
yeah,
right? So they can just focus primarily on shooting, the rhythm, and getting in the game, because bending over, picking up the ball, and doing all of that other stuff is wasting unnecessary energy. So that's the way I view clutter. Sometimes when you have to deal with clutter, you're wasting unnecessary energy on a something that is insignificant. It's significant that you get rid of it, but the items and the things that you have to arrange and move around are insignificant. So why waste your energy on those insignificant things?
and
Right?
that's just
And so,
one thing. And
yeah,
that may
and
not
that,
be for everybody. For some people, I've known some people where you just walk in their environment and
they
it's
don't
like,
care. Yeah.
how do you function in this life? Like, well, it's all in my head. It's organized chaos.
Yeah,
So
but even with that, right? That's the
mhm.
difference between like having stuff like, I'll call it mess versus clutter.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, okay,
and what I mean by that, because clutter is something that you lose control of. Having a mess. The only reason why they know where things are is typically because they put them there,
yeah,
right? If somebody came and moved it, then guaranteed they would have a hard time finding it,
yeah,
right? Yeah, I agree, Natalie. She said clutter takes away way too much energy to maintain it. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's unnecessary energy. And when you look at your life in terms of limited time, limited minutes, limited hours, limited days, it's like, how many of those days do you want to spend? How many of those minutes do you want to spend in the totality of the minutes you're allotted in your life to focus on little stuff that you probably shouldn't have in the first place? And so that's one way to look at it. And also just the clutter of your mind, right? We always talk about being focused, writing down your goals, writing down, what you want to do, vision boards. So that way you can focus on the signal versus the noise that surrounds you, right?
yeah.
And so that's another aspect of getting rid of clutter, is making sure that the signal that you're following is very clear, is very crystal, to where you can implement plans to attain it. And I'm not just talking about financially or economically, but just, maybe it's peace of life, peace of mind. Maybe it's spending more time with your family, your relatives, or whoever. You have to have that goal in mind in order to set up those systems to make that possible.
Yeah, and something else you pointed out, you touched on, was having routine and systems in place in
Yes.
your life is a great way when it comes to fear management or anxiety management, or just managing your life through tough times. Just having systems and routines, and one of the things that we've often talked about is just having a simple, for me, morning routine is something that's great when it and effective when it comes to getting off to a start, no matter what's going on before you step outside those doors or before you even step outside your bed. If you have a morning routine, that's something that can really lay the groundwork and the framework on how your day is going to be, and how you can, if you do manage to run into a hurdle or whatever, you can quickly get yourself back on track. And one of the things that I learned from somebody, and I've been doing ever since, is just getting up and having a quiet time. That's right off the bat. Quiet time, coffee, and then it's whatever else has to be done that I'm on to do it. And getting up at a regular time every morning, that helps too, and not allowing the alarm clock to wake me up, but beating the alarm clock before it goes off. If the alarm clock is waking me up, then I already know I done.
You're too tired.
Oh man, I want to start over. But so just having routine and having systems in place in every aspect of your life. That's something that can help you manage through tough times. Shauna says, when you have a routine and break it, your whole being feels it. Yeah, that's the power of routine, is that you notice it real fast when something is off. And that's um, just thinking about my diet. When I have a routine as far as my diet and have structure in it, when I break it, I feel it. And it's like, oh, now I remember why I stayed on this track in the first place. It never fails, man. Whenever I break routine or structure or things that I have in place in my life, when I feel that pain, it's like, oh, now I remember. And it just reinforces, the power of routine and structure.
Yeah, and the beauty of having a routine and the reason why sometimes you feel it when you get off of it is the fact that, we've talked about atomic habits and things like that, is that
What book was that?
James Clear, Atomic Habits. And
I'm just pointing it out because Natalie came on and she mentioned about the
book
book
list. Yeah, I forgot all about it.
Atomic Habits is one of them.
And the good thing about habits is the fact that once something becomes a habit, you don't even think about doing it. So again, when I was talking about clutter, you have to spend your energy and time getting things out of the way and focus. When you develop a habit, it actually sticks to where you cognitively may not even realize you're doing it.
Right. It frees you up.
And that's the benefit. It's just like
liberty instruction.
Yeah, it's a processing system. It's like your computer processor. When it caches memory, when it caches information, it moves a lot faster. It becomes more efficient. And so your mind actually will cache information to where you don't have to think about it. You just do it.
It becomes instant.
So that's the benefit of having a routine.
Yeah. Shauna says, my routine was such that I could set my internal alarm clock and wake up. I did not need a physical alarm clock for years. Yeah, and now, that's happened to me too, to where, I got to the point to where I can just say before I go to sleep, I want to wake up at this time, and I open my eyes, look at the clock, it's that time. It's crazy how we are. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like what are some of your books so for us to put down on this list? Atomic Habits is one.
The books I'm reading are really about like show agreements, contracts. It's like dry stuff. How to like write scripts and things like that. So that's kind of what I've been looking at as of late.
Well, what are some other ones that that we used to talk about a lot? Like I'm thinking about, what's his name? Cal
Newport.
Yeah. What's that book?
I always forget the name of it. It has to do with habits and routines.
Deep Work.
Yeah, but I haven't read that one.
You haven't read Deep Work?
No, I've seen his talks on it though.
Yeah, Deep Work is a good one, and he talks about being able to think deeply in today's distracted world is becoming more and more valuable. It's becoming more of a superpower to be able to sit in one spot and just think deeply about something. Given that we live in a world where there are so many distractions and things that are fighting over our attention. So Deep Work by Cal Newport is definitely something that really affected my thinking as far as how important it is to be able to think deeply. And when I was reading going through some of his books, I had a job where I was doing a lot of driving, and I just noticed how different it is to like think on one subject or one word for like hours at a time, and how more easily you can come across what I was going to say, inspiration, and how more easily you can come across awareness, how much more easily you can gain understanding. It's almost something that, like, you can kind of see why it's important to have times in your life where you do have like live like a monk. You know what I'm saying? Where, you know, monks, they go off to themselves for a while and they do deep thinking and meditation about some things. So I can see why that, you know, at some point in your life, it's important to experience that. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, yeah, that book, and listening to a lot of his stuff on YouTube and stuff, he really put me on to the importance of, or more of, how important it is to have a morning routine. Yeah.
Yeah. And even going back to the Cal Newport thing, one of the things that I do, I've noticed, like when I'm focused on like client work specifically, I'll cut off all distractions. Like, because I have like 3 different monitors. Actually, I got 4 monitors now, and I'll just just close out all my social media windows. I'll close out just everything and just have just like the things that are specific to my work up, so I don't get distracted and I don't start messaging anybody or things like that. So I can just be laser like focused, because I find that I work more efficiently when I do that. When I'm not distracted, I can, do the quote unquote deep work and get things done a whole lot faster. And so I always keep that in mind. It's like, okay, I can save myself some time by cutting this stuff out. And normally, like, I'll only play music either like at the very end of me working when I'm winding down versus when I'm getting started.
Yeah, and he says deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It's a skill that allows you to quickly master complicated information and produce better results in less time. And when I came across this,
that's funny. That's what I was just talking about.
Yeah. And during the time I came across this book, like I said, I was doing some driving. Then also I was working. I was working in a warehouse, to where it was like you spent like 10 at 12 hours by yourself with your thoughts. That's oh man. And it was hard for me at first, because I had come from another position to where I had access to a lot of information all the time. And then to go from that,
So did you create yourself a Wilson? Were you talking to a volleyball or anything like that?
I could see how that can happen. I can really see how that can happen. So, deep work is definitely a game changer as far as a book that I think is, somebody can get some use out of. And he got some pushback on that book too, because everybody was like, we ain't about to give up Facebook, bro. We ain't about to give up Instagram. So he came out with another book called Digital Minimalism, touching on minimalism. So he approaches deep work from a minimalistic perspective, and that, okay, keep your social world, your social media, but manage it, in this way.
Yeah, because I knew like one guy was a designer back when I was really into focusing primarily on design. He didn't have any social outlets other than the stuff he was producing. And he would talk about it. He was like, I don't have enough time to focus on keeping up with all of these little things. And so he that wasn't his focus. It's like, okay, this is my business tool. I use it as such, and that's it. I don't go beyond just that. And so that's something that I think about quite often as well. Is, like you said, just understanding what you're using it for, understanding that it's a tool. Sometimes the tool will wield you instead of you wielding the tool. And so you got to be very careful. And sometimes you can't even control it. In the sense of, we've talked about a lot of this stuff before, so this is not a new conversation. But when you get caught up in the dopamine hits and all of that kind of stuff, then it can get out of control. And too often, that's one of the reasons why, our kids, like, we let them watch YouTube. That's kind of their TV, but they still don't have a social media presence at all, because I understand the issues and the problems that come with it, as well as, you can't give somebody drugs and tell them not to overdose. right?
Man,
And
yes.
and so you got to be very cognitive of that. And being that I understand how technology works, it it's an easy decision for me. Because a lot of times parents don't understand how powerful it really is,
Yeah.
and so they give their kids loaded guns without even realizing, because they're using a loaded gun too, and they don't understand it. And so because I have a fair amount of understanding of how these things work, we keep our kids off of it at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah, just knowing how to manage this stuff is definitely important. That's one of the things it says in digital minimalism is the art of knowing how much is just enough. Um, you know, so learning how to manage technology, like you said, not letting it manage you. And when you were talking, you were making me think about the book, The Hacking of the American Mind by Dr. David Lustig. And he's where we get the 4 C's, the framework of happiness that we often talk about. The 4 C's is the framework, a framework that can help you manage your happiness through fearful, you know, panic, anxious, worrisome times. And it's real simple. He talks about, contributing, coping, cooking, and connecting. These are the 4 C's that will help you have some room, some margin, some space in your life when it comes to your health, when it comes to your wealth, when it comes to your relationships and your purpose during tough times. And given that it looks like that we're going to end, 2021, the second half look like it's gearing up from the looks of it to
For
where
another
it's,
quarantine.
yeah. We talked about that at the beginning of, back
Yep.
in these things come in waves, and that the way it looks, it's probably going to be here to stay as far as um, quarantines or lockups or lockdowns, depending on your perspective. Depending on I guess, your outlook and your perspective on how things are going.
But
So,
that brings up another point for me is planning, right?
yes,
That's another way you cope with stress. Just think
yes,
of it like military training. How do you get people to, deal with the realities of
reality.
being in combat and war, right? You train
Well,
them.
how about just accepting reality first?
Yeah, yeah. And so you train and you prepare for oncoming things. And so it makes it less jarring. It doesn't, so you take away some of the stress because, being prepared gives you an air of confidence. Even if
Yeah.
it's a false sense of confidence, it's still confidence that makes you panic less.
With hope.
Yeah, and it helps. And so you want to make sure that you're at least mentally preparing, financially preparing, and then on the very basic level, just understanding how you work. And sometimes we don't know how we work, and what I mean by that is like, okay, how do I cope with certain things? And if some things I cope with way better than others, so let
Yes.
me plan to set up to where I don't have to cope with these problems as much.
Come
And
on, yeah.
and
You push
just
it over
focus
here,
on the things that I'm willing to.
Johnson. I hope people are preparing. Yes, Miss Shauna. Um, that is the hope. So I guess I guess we can stick on that for a little bit, just talking about the importance of preparation, living in a state of preparation versus a state of desperation.
Yeah,
This
reaction,
is
right?
Yes, we want to be able to respond, then react. This is the great work that we all
Oh,
have to practice
it's like,
as
oh, there was
virtual.
a test today. Oh man.
Yeah, we all have to practice that. I can't remember when I kind of learned that or gained that insight, but I just realized, how important. I guess life has a way of beating up on you to the point. It beat up on me to the point to where I realized it's good to have systems like you said and stuff in place uh, that so that you can respond versus react. Man, I forgot what I was gonna say with that.
Hold on, I'm looking up the guy, the other guy, Charles Duhigg. That's his name.
Yes, yeah.
The one book I always forget the name of is
Habits, clear.
It's hold on. I'll get it here in a second. The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll write that in the comments too. But it made me think. The reason why I thought about him again is because he talked about Starbucks in his book, and in one of the chapters he was focused on. Hold on, was it him? I don't know. Now I'm getting my books mixed up. But it was either him or it was Sideshow Bob with the dude. What's his name? Yeah, I'm losing that names in my head.
Sideshow Bob.
No, he looks like Sideshow Bob. He does
Malcolm.
outliers. Yeah, him.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, Gladwell. I'm sorry. It was one of them that talked about Starbucks, and I want to say maybe it was no, I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, the reason why I brought that up is because he was talking about the training that takes place for new employees and how it was Gladwell was outliers and how like a particular employee that he met, it was like, why did his life change? And or maybe it was Seth Godin. See the tipping point. See, I don't know. I can't remember.
Hey, that's
Like,
another good one.
yeah, there's so many books that I've ingested in my head.
You can read any of Seth Godin's books, and
Yeah,
you're good.
yeah, it
Tribes.
was Seth Godin. Look, I get more and more confident each name I bring up. Yeah, it was him. I know it was him.
Look, hey, but anyway, we're going through our book list though at the same time while we're
Yeah,
doing
exactly. So I'm writing them down in the show topics.
it. But yeah, you
In
put
the
any
comments section.
Seth Godin book, The Practice.
Yeah, I read his books are pretty good. But anyway, he was talking about the training. So we're talking about preparation and things like that. And he was saying that the training that they go through prepares them for how to deal with customers, right? The reason why a lot of places and a lot of employees don't do well dealing with disgruntled customers is the fact that they haven't trained for it. And he was like, specifically Starbucks, they go through scenarios of how to address different types of customers, if they come in with certain kind of attitudes so you can de-escalate the issues. And so that kind of preparation makes their employees perform at a higher clip because they prepared for it so they don't get stressed when it happens. Because usually, you get backlash or you get these World Star or, Instagram fight videos is because the people, both sides of the equation have reached their tipping point, so to speak, since that's Seth Godin's word. And then that's when, all chaos breaks loose. So the preparation aspect of it, whether it be financially, whether it be economically, in terms of the economy as a whole, those are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about and preparing for so that when it does happen and it does occur, you're not panicking, because panic is a bad situation to be in. Question.
Okay. Question. Okay. How should people prepare for another possible lockdown? That's a good question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Well, I was going to say first and foremost, getting your mind, preparing your mind for that, and just realizing that may or may not be a reality. But if it does happen, then just mentally preparing yourself for that, and then emotionally settling yourself into that, and bring yourself back to a state of being at peace with that and what that means. Physically, making sure that you're physically capable and functional in shape. That's something that's just pretty simple that any one of us can do. And I'm just thinking about simple things like doing body weight exercises, staying flexible and mobile, doing mobility work. These are all things you could do in your house at home to help you with a possible another lockdown scenario. Just looking at the last lockdown scenario, a lot of, the pandemic pounds. A lot of people have experienced, an increase in anxiety and depression and, worry. A lot of people have mentally fractured or just kind of, zoned out, clocked out, during that time. And then a lot of people may have lost hope, during the last, a lot of people did lose hope, given the suicide rates and some of the things that, other statistics and numbers that came out of the last period. So going into this one, one of the ways to prepare is to just face it as reality and say it is what it is, and gather, do whatever you can as far as like insulating yourself, making those connections with like-minded individuals and strengthening your community and your relationships, putting in place some coping mechanisms, practices that can help you during those times, and finding something to give yourself to or contribute to during, if there is another lockdown coming, finding some way to stay active and giving service. And what I mean by that, looking at the last lockdown, I know, a lot of people, for whatever reason, were locked in their house, or they stayed in their house, or they stayed in the same place or in an environment or in isolation for a period of time. So you can break down real fast when you do that. So it's important to find some way or some shape or form to be of service and stay active and stay moving. So those are some of the things that come to the top of my head.
Yeah, other things that I would say is, one, prepare those around you, right? This goes back to the 4 C's: community. Make sure that, other people are thinking about it as well, so that you can eliminate panic in your proximity in terms of your neighbors and that kind of stuff. Because if you get them mentally prepared and get them, thinking about stocking up on food and all of that kind of stuff, then that's less worry you have to have about people breaking into your house and doing things to you kind of stuff, just for worry of lack. And that's an extreme scenario. But again, just preparing ahead of time helps prevent that, and it helps get everybody on the same page, so to speak. Because it's about your environment. It's about, protecting your environment, and the best way to protect your environment is to protect your community, because that makes up your environment that you're in.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not extreme. Just looking at the last lockdown, some of the things that we saw or that I seen, I don't know if everybody saw it, but if you went through some of the stores, there was a lot of empty spaces on the shelves, i.e. toilet paper, i.e. I noticed water. Where I was at, the water that I normally bought, it wasn't. It was like empty for a long period of time, and then when it did come back, I started stocking up on it.
Dad. One way to prepare, when you said toilet paper, made me think, is like, get a bidet, right? It's like, you don't need toilet paper, you get a bidet. That's one thing. Also, again, I'm a big one. Me and my wife tells me, my wife will verify this. I talk about clutter all the time. Like, I'm one of those people that I can't deal with it mentally because I have so much on my mind, and it frustrates me just to deal with little stuff. And so doing that will actually help you as well, because again, I look at things, so statistically, the majority of accidents throughout anywhere in the world happen at home. So your home is one of the most dangerous environments you can have. And the more time you spend at home, then the more risk of danger that occurs. And I have a variety of thoughts of why that is. But either way, you want to make sure that your home is a safe place. You want to make sure that it's safe for you. You want to make sure it's safe for your children. It's safe for visitors, because you can get sued. But you just want to make sure that your home is a safe place. And eliminating clutter can actually help prevent a lot of injuries, because most people, like, when you think about emergencies, things that are emergencies are like, like costly in terms of like your car, your house, and your body. If your body is damaged, then that affects every aspect of your life.
Man.
And you don't want to take that for granted. I used to work in a hospital years ago, And I've seen all kinds of scenarios where people would come into the hospital and literally it changed the way I thought about life and how I think about health, because I would see people come in one way and their life would take a terrible turn because of the injuries that they had, the things that they never planned on, which is lack of upper body strength and those kinds of things. I remember one man, he came in for a knee replacement and he ended up essentially dying in the hospital. Because he was a big guy. So he came in for one knee, and the fact that they had to wait for him to lose weight, then he got better. It just started, his problems started compounding on themselves to where then he was bedridden for so long to where his muscles had atrophied. He couldn't squeeze his hand. It was just like, I've seen those kind of scenarios, and all he was planning on doing was coming in for a knee replacement, and it just snowballed out of his control and out of the control of his family, right? And so I think about those kind of scenarios. Like I said, it's kind of extreme, but I've seen it in a variety of times. I used to work in physical therapy, so I've seen all of these kinds of things to where people are living one way one day, and then the next day I'm in there working with them, right? And so when I think about preparation and I think about all of these kinds of things, life is very interrelated. So I try not to take any of that stuff for granted. In terms of environment, in terms of health, in terms of the way I think about seemingly insignificant things. They have significance. So again, you just want to make sure that going back to eliminating clutter, it helps clear your mind to where you can focus on the things you need to focus on. So it's like, okay, I got a whiteboard, you got a piece of paper. Write down all the things that you didn't like about last year. You talk about preparation for a possible quarantine, right? And figure out and just list them first, and then write down what you didn't like about them, and then write down what you could do to change that scenario to make it more tolerable or to eliminate those frustrations or those predicaments altogether, right? And so that's a practical way to prepare, because one, that helps you prepare mentally, like Kevin was talking about. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't want to put on extra pounds. I want to make sure that I can do X, Y, Z. Then now is the time you need to start, quote unquote, training for it or preparing for it. And then by the time those things come, it's like, okay, again, your confidence levels will be way better than they were before. And a little confidence can go a long way. Trust me.
Oh, man. Yeah. I think I mentioned, the last show that I had started. I got a personal trainer, just to kind of get me back on track to where I think I should be. And I just noticed that after the first couple of sessions, like you said, my confidence went up as far as how I felt about my capabilities physically. Just thinking about preparation and tough times, hard times, lockdown and stuff. Just thinking about just anything, any scenario you often bring up, what if your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere? Are you capable or able of running or walking a couple of miles? Just simple things like that can go a long way. It didn't have to be anything outrageous or, what we say is outrageous or extreme, but just some small things that anybody can do at any time. Shauna says, one of the things I noticed the week before the lockdown is how people shopped. One basket was full of nothing but junk food. It was a literal mound in the grocery basket. Watch what you buy. Yeah, just keeping an eye on that, what you buy, and stock it up on things that have some substance to it as far as food-wise and nutritional-wise versus those things that's going to have you going crazy and experiencing what they call insulin spikes during a lockdown. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be isolated.
As far away from the hospital as you possibly can. The hospital is not a good place to go if you're healthy. And I'm just saying that from when I used to work in the hospital, one of the things they used to tell us is that, you want to have your time in the hospital limited as much as possible. And the reason it being is because that's literally an incubator for disease.
To concentrate, yeah.
It's literally what it is. And so you have to think as such, right? So if you have a compromise, any kind of anything, the hospital is not where you want to be located. You want to be as far away from that as possible. So do all the things you can to avoid those trips, right? You know, and
Yeah.
again, I understand some people can't control that, right? But, you know, the fact that you've made it this far from last year, think about the things that you could do to improve those encounters. Think about the things that you can do to improve your own personal safety in whatever capacity that is. And again, it'll make you feel better. It'll make you wiser, and it'll increase your chances of survival. You know, I tell
Yeah.
my children quite a bit. I was like, it's amazing how long you can live because your body is amazing and fragile at the same time.
Yeah.
And you have to be very aware of that. And I'm not saying, you know, live in a life of fear and misery. Is quite the opposite, right? It's, for me, it's a matter of just understanding that, okay, these are the things that can happen. How can I best prepare for a situation that's within my control? Because everything is not going to be in your control, and you know that's just what life is. But at least be able to control the things that you should be able to control. I'll put it that way. And so you just want to make sure that you prepare for that. And it's very practical things. The stuff we're talking about is not very hard. Like I
No.
said, take an inventory. Look at your bills. Figure out what you do eat. Figure out how you can improve your health. Figure out how you can avoid gaining an extra 30 to 40 pounds next if there's another quarantine, right? Figure out, think about how you felt because of that. Let that be the motivator to make you do better, right? Think about the misery
Literally
side
had
of it.
that. Yeah, I literally had that thought. You know, after one of my sessions, I was like, "Why am I doing this?" And then I had to think, "Oh, this is why I'm doing it." You know, I was thinking
Yeah,
about, you know,
yeah, you got to keep those reasons in the forefront of your mind, because
and
otherwise,
one of the pictures that came in my head was me playing with like grandkids and playing with
yep,
my kids, and that picture was literally in my head. So I was like, "Oh, that's why I'm doing
yep,
it." So
yeah,
yeah, having a reason that's bigger than you, and you know, making sure you have some clear reasons on um, why you want to thrive through a lockdown or through a quarantine. Having those pictures in your head,
yeah, for
you know,
sure.
family, community, uh, just enjoying life as much as you can, while you can, when you can. Those are, you know, good pictures to have in your head. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking about Victor, Frank Victor.
Frankel,
Yes, that's a book that's on the book list. That's on my book list.
what's the name of the book?
Oh
Okay.
man.
I'll look it up. Frankel with no E. And see, any specific book?
What's the list that comes up?
Yeah, I'll look at book list. 1 second. Pause for this
Man's
word.
Search for Meaning.
Is that?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, yep, I see it.
Yeah, that's the book. That's the book that kind of helped shape my thinking. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he talked about, you know, the differences, the things that he noticed amongst the survivors, and then the ones that who didn't survive. And he talked about during the book how he could tell those who were about to die, you know, just by the look in their eyes and how they were acting. You know,
Yeah,
he said he got you know, real intimate with being able to see when somebody's light, when somebody's hope had left. So that's why, you know, a lot of times, like if you go through my timeline, I'm always talking about hope, encouragement, and staying positive. I know that's not um, the case. That's not, you know, you can't do that 100% of the time, but work on gearing your perception, gearing your sights towards that. That can go a long way. So he's the Man's Search for Meaning is one of those books that kind of help shape my thinking when it comes to going through tough times and hard times. Because I was just thinking, you know, like how do you get through? How do you thrive through tough times? Like how do you go through periods like the Holocaust periods? You
yeah,
know, What kind of mindset or framework does somebody have to get through that? And in that book, he talks about having um, hope and like focusing on things that's bigger than you, giving your life, and also he talks about being grateful and focusing on uh, those small things in life. Like he talked about working. They had him
Yep.
in camps working. He just talked about like looking up and being able to see the sun,
Yep.
see
The
the
little
morning
victories.
sun.
Yep.
Huh?
You
Yeah,
said the
those
little
small things.
victories.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those
I typed in because you talking about the Holocaust made me think about a graphic novel that I read some years back called Mouse. It's a graphic novel. It's basically the story of the Holocaust told through the lens of a mouse, but it was like real stories of this guy's family. But he depicted it as like a mouse. It's an awesome graphic novel. It's like the first graphic novel I ever read, and it was awesome. So I recommend that one as well because it just talks about like little stuff like you're referring to. But again, going back to what you mentioned with Frankel and how people survive is hope. We talked about confidence. A little hope can go a long way as well. And again, just based on the question that my wife asked, is we're talking about preparation, preparing for the times that can come, preparing economically, preparing mentally, educate yourself. We talked about opportunities before the pandemic like set in. We talked about those back in March of last year about
yeah,
things that you could possibly do in order to thrive in the new switching economy, right? And
yeah,
so the good thing, if it happens, it may not happen. It may not. Who knows? But either way, you want to be prepared. And one way that you can do that is figure out how you can make money without being present. And what I mean by that is there are tons of ways to make money on the internet. Right now, you don't need a huge following. You don't need any of that kind of stuff. You definitely need to be able to market to some extent, but you don't necessarily need to be able to market to the masses. There's all kinds of opportunities through the internet to make money, and it's not necessarily all technical either. Uh,
right.
so so just start planning for those things, looking for us like, okay, you do fitness, how can you make money on the internet doing fitness? Or maybe you could do live video sessions where you talk to people one on one. There's all kinds of if you give me any scenario, I guarantee I can come up with a business concept for it. But there's all kinds of scenarios that you can think about. And again, you just want to prepare that, okay, if we have to go on lockdown again, are you working a job or at a facility to where you don't have to be there? If you're not, then you may need to be thinking about other opportunities before that hits, because you don't want to be so dependent upon a company that they lay you off because they can't have you do what they need you to do. You want to
Right.
at least have some skill sets in your back pocket, or maybe you start utilizing that stuff now. So by the time that the quarantine does take place, then you have plenty of opportunity to start stepping up in that area. So just think about that. Think about what kind of opportunities lie there. Think about because again, if all the kids are going to be back home and all those kinds of things, what can you do to help supplement some of those things? Right? There's plenty of opportunities. There's never a shortage of opportunities in life. So that's another aspect of mindset. Never.
Mindsets of our say. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the difference between an abundant mindset and a scarcity mindset. I'm glad you said that. That there is never a lack of opportunities that are available. It's just whether we can see it or not. And sometimes we may have to ask for help or may have to ask for
Community,
insight.
all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
definitely, again, and you can take advantage of this stuff right now. But just I don't know, just prepare, get yourself ready, get yourself mentally ready, get yourself healthy. That's always, that's an evergreen topic. It's an evergreen thing
We
that you need
always
to
come
be
back to
focused
that.
on. Evergreen,
I
always
come
focus
back to
on.
that because I
Yeah,
hate headache. I hate pain, man.
yeah, exactly. And so always focus on getting healthy because that just helps, outside of a disaster of any kind, it just helps extend your life. and it helps you, like, fulfill those visions like Kevin had of, being with your grandkids and all of that kind of stuff. You gotta be around, and all the things that we're literally talking about is just for the extending your life in some form or fashion, extending your quality of life, or just increasing the quality of life that you have remaining. All of us have a number, a set number of days on this planet. Don't take it for granted. Don't take your opportunities for granted. Just enjoy the days. And I'm not saying that everything has to be happy, but everything can be enjoyable in terms of, taking the simple pleasure of seeing the sunrise, or hearing the sunrise, or hearing the sound, or not even hearing, whatever it is. There's opportunities for you to enjoy this existence. So take advantage of that, and definitely be a value add and not a devaluer, a value loss in this plan.
Before we get off, before we close out, are there any other books that you might want to point out real quick? Like right now, I'm thinking about David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind, Defy the Odds.
The audio book is awesome.
Who?
There's an audio book for that. It's awesome.
Yeah, the audio book is good. There's more in the audio book than it is in the actual book, I think he says.
Yeah, because he talks about what his mindset was during those specific times.
Yeah.
So the book is really good. Actually, I watched the David Goggins video earlier today too. That's my guy. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other books.
I wanted to specifically ask Natalie if this helped as far as our books that we're calling out.
Yeah, Natalie, if you're still watching, let us know if these books are helping. If this list is helpful. Another, man.
I know we need to write it down.
Like I said, I have like a ton of
Gary V.
Yeah, what's the name of the book? I got his book right here.
Gary V. Crush It.
Yeah, Ask Gary V.
Yep, Ask Gary V.
You're about to make me go, bro. Look at some of the stuff you can find online, videos. They do a lot of talks about their books, and sometimes they give discounts. Sometimes they give their books away. Gary V. Let's see, Crush It is one.
Jab.
Yeah, I remember one time I told him I wouldn't buy his book.
You told Gary V. you wouldn't buy it?
Yeah, he's like, fair enough. I was like, yeah, I'm not interested, bro.
What did he say?
Yeah, he's like, fair enough. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be honest.
He said he don't read books anyway.
Actually, yeah, and most of the books, I actually listened to a large majority of books. The Charles Duhigg book, I read it, the actual physical book, because I loved it so much. But most of the books I'll listen to, and I have physical books that I'll read. They have to be really compelling for me to read it.
I know. What about Robert Greene?
Yeah, his books are huge. If you're not a voracious reader, then Robert Greene may not be your cup of tea.
Mastery, 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah, Mastery is a good one.
Mastery is good.
Yeah.
Mastery is good. He talks about, spending time honing your craft to a level, where you're like the LeBron James of whatever it is that you do in life.
Yeah, the Serena Williams. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's funny. I just my friend and I, he sent me a video as a pastor that was talking about that very thing, mastery. And he was saying, praying and all that stuff is awesome, but you got to master stuff. You can't just be an unskilled person in this planet and expect to do anything of significance, right? So you want to make sure that you master and understand the world around you. Going back to what I mentioned with education in terms of preparation, you got to educate yourself. In education, I mean in a vast way, right? Educate yourself on the environment around you. You don't go down this street at night because such and such is that you don't wear this. That's the form of education. You don't wear these colors here. And also, it's like, oh, how can I, increase my revenue or do certain things that'll make my life better. That requires a mastery of some sort. You have to understand what your passions are, what's really built for you to do, because not everybody can do everything. And so I think that's why some people get caught up on with a lot of these online gurus, is the fact that, it's like, oh, he made money doing this. And then the next thing you know, you started off becoming a fitness coach, and now you're off doing whatever, right? You're just trying to do all of this stuff. You're chasing all of these rabbits, and you're not getting any one of them. So don't get caught up in other people's examples of how they live their life. Take the principles and apply those principles to whatever suits you. Because again, one of my favorite sayings by me is, if Subway can make millions and billions of dollars selling a sandwich that everybody can make, then you can make money from anything. So don't get so caught up in the widget itself. Get caught up in the principles that make widgets work. And so that's what I would advise anybody. So that way you don't get so flustered and so like, oh man, this guy got rich doing this guy got rich boxing, and you don't become a boxer if you can't fight. So, or if you're 40 years old and you're just trying to get started, boxing ain't it for you. Maybe a trainer, but you're not going to be a champ. It's just not going to happen. I'm just letting you know. But anyway, I digress. So these are some of the books that we read. And again, we'll think of more as we're talking, because there's usually a book that fits the scenario that we're talking about. The key again is to educate yourself and just make sure that you enjoy this life. Period.
So, two shot guys and a mic. J. Kev, Blake Taylor here, just having our regular, just open conversation about health, wealth, relationships, happiness, and everything in between. So we hope that something was said that will be a good return on the attention and the time that you spent and paid to us. So we definitely don't take it for granted. We definitely appreciate you, and that's all we got.
Yep. Peace out, everybody.
Peace out.